I had on Craig McIver, who was the longtime UN official, human rights lawyer, the director of the UN's New York office of the High Office for Human Rights Commissioner. And he was saying how they say these things out loud. Like when you're trying to make the case for genocide, often the hardest part is to prove the intent, the genocidal intent, but they're just saying these things out loud. And the reason they're saying these things out loud that would be potentially dangerous to say out loud, just from a self-preservation perspective, is precisely because there's such a culture of impunity and because they're not held accountable. And so we do have to hold them accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rustigal said that as well.
Yeah. And they're also, of course, Ross. So now all these Zionist entities, to quote the alleged Iran propaganda, are trying to smear Ras Segal. I don't know if you've seen that, because he said that there's a genocide happening. So
yeah, he said it's a textbook case
of genocide, right?
I'm not surprised they're trying to smear him.
Yeah.
Is he a self-hating now?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, self-hating Jew, right? Yeah.
He's a good company though. I think you're in that category now too, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely, yeah.
It's insidious. And Zoran was talking earlier about, the ADL, or actually, no, you mentioned it, that the ADL has, elements or spies within our. I wanted to comment on that because, that's not, the history of the ADL. I mean, they have a long history of spying on social justice groups, from, anti-apartheid groups, Food Not Bombs, the Black Panthers, the NAACP, ADC. I mean, every social justice group.
It's important point.
And, I think the ADL is just, I think they should be investigated as a foreign agent, frankly.
I agree. I would support that. It's so funny because all these people who accuse us of anti-Semitism, they're the ones perpetuating so many of these anti-Semitic tropes, like the dual loyalty trope, right? They're the ones who conflate being a Zionist with being a Jew, which is not true.
Zionism itself is the biggest, promulgator of anti-Semitism. It kind of assumes this sort of singular Jewish mind,
right?
And this singular Jewish loyalty to a political entity. I mean, that itself is, is anti-Semitic. That every Jew in the world is a Zionist and supports Israel. And
yeah, I know. I mean, we had on an Orthodox rabbi last week. And, he and I disagree on many things, but one of the things that we obviously do agree on is that Israel has no right to pretend to speak for all Jews, which of course they do. And he went through some of the really self-loathing / anti-Semitic things that a lot of the founders of Israel actually have said, which is ironic because people are constantly telling critics of Israel that we're either anti-Semitic and or self-loathing Jews. But some of the things that these people who founded Israel said, ranging from, Herzl to Jabotinsky, are just dripping with anti-Semitism. And Ben-Gurion, who called Jews parasites. There was such a strong rejection of diaspora Jewry.
Well, they also they didn't like Arab Jews either.
Right.
They considered them dirty Arabs. They sprayed them with DDT when they arrived. They took their babies away and gave them to Ashkenazi Jews.
But they created this fake Jew, right? That's why they had to create modern Hebrew, which they didn't speak. And so they rejected, they were, like you said, they were racist against Arab Jews, but they also had a shame, they associated Ashkenazi Jews with the shtetl and going to the slaughter, or lambs to the slaughter with the Holocaust. So they had to create this new Jew that was defined by machismo and taking the land away from people, basically, even though they pretended it was
Zionism is insidious. It really is insidious. It's another face of white supremacy. It's a supremacist ideology. it's a colonial project,
Yeah.
and in some ways it's colonized Judaism, just as it has colonized Palestine, and um, yeah, there can we can't there can't be any justice or any peace or anything that is life affirming as long as Zionism is thriving.
I think that something people really need to understand is that because I think people really are so naive. They really think that Israel cares about Jews.
Oh, for God's sakes.
They do. I mean, people were raised with this idea, right? And they think that Israel was really founded to give Jews a safe haven, and people don't realize that so many of Zionist supporters were people who didn't want Jews in their own countries. That's why they wanted Jews to go to Israel.
I don't know if you heard what Johnathan Pollard just said recently. Did you hear
What was
his
it?
he said, the families, what
Oh,
Israel
right.
needs to do is declare martial law and tell the families of the hostages to shut up or we will shut you up.
By the way, we have that Johnathan Pollard clip, and Johnathan Pollard is speaking of the dual loyalty, because this guy was an Israeli spy. He was an American who spied for Israel.
And according to US authorities, when it comes to espionage, Johnathan Pollard alone did the most damage to, US security. Um and then, one president after another, Israel lobbied, and finally he was finally
Pardoned,
released.
released. Yeah. So here's what he had to say about the hostages and their families.
The first thing that the government should have done was declare a state of national emergency and told all of the hostage families, you will keep your mouths shut or we will shut them for you. You will not interfere in our management of this war. You will not be used by the international community or by our own leftists who managed the Shalit deal as a weapon against us. And if that means imprisoning to silence certain members of the hostage families, then so be it. We're in a state of war. I was dead set against turning all these posters out were kidnapped with all these pictures of these poor people that were kidnapped. Why? Because each one of them was a poison dart.
I mean, we know they don't care about Palestinians, obviously, but they don't even. I think so many people think, well, they protect their own. They'll do anything to save their own, and they don't even do that.
It's not about the hostages. They've been killing them. A lot of first of all, we know that they killed a lot of the Israelis who were killed on October 7th. They died at the hands of Israel's Apache helicopters and their tanks and their own police and military. And a lot of them were also killed in the strikes in Gaza. Israel had a chance from day one to get the hostages back, and Hamas was very clear about that. They set out the terms and they said, "Look, we don't want to keep your hostages. We are caring for them. We'll hand them over. Here's what we want you to hand over our hostages that you've been holding without charge or trial but Israel didn't do that. And they ended up killing a lot of their own people again in those airstrikes. The goal has never been to free the hostages.
Right.
That's the sellable ticket item, and nor is the goal really to remove Hamas. The goal is to take Gaza and to get their hands on that particular piece of land, which is associated with a massive offshore gas field that is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and also the geographic location that lends itself to a shipping canal that could rival the Suez Canal and basically render Egypt irrelevant for, forever.